We have the privilege today to have David Gamboa, somebody I consider a friend. I said in the first service too, obviously a partner in ministry that we get to be together. And so would you give a warm welcome to David Gamboa?
Thank you. Well, I was telling Pastor Rob that he's a true pastor because not many churches invite us to take over their Sunday service because it's not a easy, light message, but I believe this is an urgent message for the hour. And I just came back from my very first women's conference. I was up here at Inspired Church and they had a women's conference, and the first service I didn't stick to my notes because I was so fired up. I just started preaching. And this conference was 2,000 praying women that were praying for the ending of abortion and the ending of human trafficking. And let me tell you, how do you say make someone angry? I almost said the P word but I forget I have middle schoolers in here. But man, when you make a mama bear angry, you better watch out. I mean, that room was fiery. And so it just got me fired up. And man, the church is needed. You guys are needed. You guys are needed on the front lines. No more saying Elijah Rising, y'all are fighting trafficking, y'all go be on the front lines. No, the front lines are coming to you. They're coming to your school. They're coming to your community. And if you don't stand up for truth, no one will. If this church does not stand up for truth, lies are going to begin to target your children. Because that is who is being targeted in the industry that I'm about to tell you about, the sex industry. There's a big target on children. And if there's anything I've learned from doing this ministry is, we kind of have this idea of children being innocent and, you just don't have a grid for evil targeting children. It's very hard for me to understand how a mother would traffic her daughter. Like, how many of you, you just don't have a grid for that? But the enemy targets children, innocent ones, vulnerable ones. And that's what I've seen. And so it's time that the church picks up its sword. And I'm not talking about natural weapons, but when Paul is describing the armor of God, we put on the armor because, we need to be protected. But let me tell you, it is time we get offensive. We have to be offensive to the culture. Because if you do not be offensive to the culture, we're going to see an entire generation being led on a path that leads to death and destruction of society as we know it. And so the Bible says that we've been given the sword of the Spirit, right? Which is the Word of God. The sword of the Spirit, which is the Spirit of truth, which is the Word of God. So you have a powerful weapon to slice through lies. And I want each one of you to walk out here knowing that you have the truth inside of you. And it is the most powerful force in the world. The gospel is explosive power to demolish strongholds. What's a stronghold? It's a place that holds you in addiction. It's a place that leads you to death. It's a place where you can never experience freedom because you're ashamed. It's a place where your self-worth has brought down to nothing, to where you have low self-esteem. You don't trust yourself. You're unconfident. And that's what the enemy wants to do, because he wants to destroy your life. He wants to destroy your family. He wants to destroy your marriage. And so when I asked Pastor Rob, what kind of topics do we want to talk about? I gave him 4, and he said, overcoming pornography addiction. And so I was like, okay, we could do that. And so that's what we're going to talk about today. And, it's a sensitive topic, and I can see, some of you guys are getting nervous, and I can feel the nervous energy. But I want you to know, everyone in here has seen porn. Let's just rip that Band-Aid off, right? Who here has seen a pornographic image? Raise your hand. Yeah, people are like. Now tell me, how old were you when you saw your first pornographic image? Just yell it out. 'Louder, I can't hear it. 9, 4. You see, most people are exposed to pornography at a very, very young age. The average age, according to research, is 11 years old. When I was in high school, I actually saw my first pornographic image when I was in 5th grade on a computer. That was when the internet was first starting out. We had to get these AOL discs, and you would get 30 minutes of internet access. And I heard there was this website I could go to, and I got this AOL disc, I put it in, and I got 30 minutes to try and find this porn site. And that was when I first saw pornography as a 5th grader. And then back in the day, there was a channel on your TV. We had cable TV, and if you went to 00, it was Playboy. And it was all staticky. We didn't even pay for the channel, but through the static, you could watch pornographic films. And every one of you has walked in here with some type of device that is capable of displaying hardcore pornography. You probably have the equivalent of 800 or 8 million adult video shops in your pocket right now. There's that much content. You can access it in 0.5 seconds. That's crazy. This is the first generation to ever live with that much concentration and saturation of hardcore pornography. And we're treating it like it's this very kind of normal issue, but really, behind the issue of pornography, there's a demonic agenda, okay? Now, I'm speaking to a church, so I can be real with you and help you see that there are spiritual influences in the world, right? We read our Bibles, we know there is evil, but let me tell you, there is an intelligent evil that is trying to bring destruction to your children. And if you don't think evil is intelligent, then you are being naive. Evil is very intelligent. We had a young girl on the way to our safe home, and she was taking a Greyhound bus, and she had just been rescued out of trafficking. She was trafficked from a very young age, 16 years old, very young girl. And she came to this bus stop to change buses. And I kid you not, when she gets off the bus and she gets ready to get on to the next bus, standing at the doorway of the bus is her trafficker in another state. Picks up her suitcases and says, "Nah, you're coming with me. Come on, let's go. I got a place for you." Praise God, she was able to say, no, I've made this decision. I'm getting on this bus. I'm going to a safe home. I'm going to a program. But how can you explain to me how her trafficker was in another state at the bus station right at the exact same time she was ready to go? There's another story of a girl who graduated our program, was getting gas at a local gas station. A guy approached her and began to start a relationship with her. 4 or 5 months into the relationship, she realized that he was a trafficker himself. I'm telling you, there is an evil agenda that is out to destroy you if you are not walking with the Lord. That's why he's given you the armor of God, right? That's why he's given you truth. because the enemy wants to get you so wrapped up in lies, because lies lead to destruction. And he would want nothing more than for your life to be destroyed, for society to be destroyed. And that's why we're seeing human trafficking. Why? Because human trafficking is not just selling someone for sex, but it's selling someone's body and soul. And the wounds are not just physical, there's deep, deep soul wounds that cause people to come to a place and say, God, if you're real, why did you allow this to happen to me? And we're seeing victims become younger and younger and younger. So much so that adult women are dressing like children on the street and being sold. When I got involved with this issue, I was a youth and young adult pastor. Raise your hand if you are a young adult pastor, middle school pastor, youth pastor. I see Jarrell back there. Guys, show them some love. Give them a round of applause, because we're not in peacetime. This is wartime. There's a war being waged for your children. And youth pastors, young adults, middle school pastors, y'all are on the front lines, okay? Pornography is just everywhere. It's so easy to access. It's on Twitter. Twitter was one of the largest databases of child pornography on the internet. Facebook, over 60% of the women that are trafficked were groomed through Facebook. TikTok, people don't get to censor or filter the things that they see. You just keep swiping, and if TikTok knows you're a man and you create an account, TikTok is going to feed you softcore pornography. And you don't really have a choice. And so this is young, it's targeting younger and younger people. Dawn back there, she works with our awareness, and she was telling me, she used to be a teacher for a number of years, and she told me there was a site that they told their children to go to do their assignments on, and if you left out one letter, this porn production site ended up buying that domain, and so all these kids were forwarded to this hardcore pornography site. And so the reason why they're targeting kids is because if you're a marketer, you understand LTV. That means lifetime value. If you can get someone while they're young, you have them as consumers for longer periods of time, which is why Victoria's Secret created the line called Pink. Why did they create a line for children? So that they can begin to get consumers become younger and younger and younger. And there's a whole documentary about Victoria's Secret and Jeffrey Epstein that you should probably go watch, but we don't have time to get into that. I'm actually going to skip past our stuff because I really want to get to talking about this, because this is very important. The porn epidemic. And church, I want to reason with you that we are not prepared for the wave of perversion that we are about to see in America and in the world. We are not prepared. And so now is the time to get prepared. If you needed a wake-up call, wake-up alarm, here I am. It's time to wake up. It's time to get prepared. It's time to start taking this seriously, because this is impacting your children. And we don't just need moms in the fight. Where are my fathers at? We need dads in the fight. Just because you're struggling with a porn addiction doesn't mean that you get to stay out of this. Because there are young boys that need the voice of fathers in their life. This is the most fatherless generation in our culture. So men, your voice is valuable. Your voice is needed. And the reason why the porn industry has targeted you, because your voice is powerful. And he's done a good job of silencing us. Fathers, we need you. And this is the whole mission of Elijah Rising. Elijah Rising We got that from the Bible. That's the spirit of Elijah rising. In Malachi 4:5, it says, before the great and terrible day of the Lord, I will send the prophet Elijah, and he will turn the hearts of the fathers to the children and the hearts of the children to the fathers, unless the land would become under utter destruction. So there is a reconciliation that needs to happen between the generations, where us older folk need to stand up and fight for this next generation. And we need to be a voice of influence in their life. And they need to understand that they can come to us and not be ashamed of what's being thrown at them. Because what's being thrown at them is something that you and I do not understand. Because when we were children, we did not have internet. We did not have mobile devices that had hardcore pornography. We did not have the problem of watching YouTube and having Playboy ads pop up and tempt us. So we do not understand what this generation is going through. So we need to get to the place where we're willing to be like fathers who are going to sit with these young men and teach them truth and be a safe place where they can come to you judgment free, and you can begin to instill the love of the Father to them. Because church, this is why you're so needed. Because they ain't going to get this anywhere else in the world. They ain't going to get it in their school. There's not a secular organization that's out there trying to connect fathers with young men who are fatherless. It's the church. Like, we are it. You are the front lines, and you are the last line of defense for where we at this cultural moment in history. Now, I want to pull back the veil for you so that you can see what is happening behind the scenes in the spiritual realm that will show you why we got to where we are at today. And
here's what I found.
Thank you. How to identify the spirit of witchcraft. Wow. It's literally what it pulled up on YouTube. All right. Well, when I came here, I did not make this connection. But as I was praying, the Lord gave me Ephesians 5:11. And it says, do not participate in the unfruitful deeds of darkness, but instead even expose them. For it is disgraceful even to speak of the things which are done by them in secret. But all things become visible when they are exposed by the light, for everything that becomes visible is light. For this reason, it says, awake, sleeper, and arise from the dead, and Christ will shine on you. And I did not connect the dots last service, but let me tell you, the name for the first pornographic film created was created in the 1800s. The name of that film is called Bedtime for the Bride. Is that not prophetic? Bedtime for the Bride. I would argue that the reason the church has lost its prophetic voice is because we've been lured to sleep by the hypersexualized culture and pornography that is keeping us in shame and preventing us from speaking. And each one of you, God has given a voice. And because of pornography, it silenced you. It silenced you. Because what pornography does is it disconnects you from God. Because you feel unworthy. You feel dirty. You feel like a failure. You feel like not a man. You feel like not a woman. And I'm going to show you why. Here's why there's a demonic agenda. I mean, bedtime for the bride, that's pretty obvious. Like, let's put the church to sleep. Let's get them addicted to pornography so they feel shame, they feel low self-worth. Let's destroy the marriages. Let's destroy the marriages so kids grow up without fathers, So now those young boys, those young girls don't have any self-worth. Okay, so now let's get them addicted to pornography because pornography fuels this idea that, it feeds that low self-worth, that low self-esteem. But look at this. Pornography is rooted in the temptation to turn other people into objects. Okay, it's turning other people into objects. What are objects? Idols. God said he's made man and women in his image. You shall not worship anything that is a counterfeit, like made in his image. So we are his image bearers. So when we decide to rob a human being of their dignity of being human, we turn them into an object and we worship that object. Why do we worship it? Because we return to it ritually, right? Pornography addiction is when you habitually or ritually come to a place in front of a screen and perform an act. So it's in essence, it is idolatry. It degrades the image of God into a tool to perpetuate perversion. And this is why it fuels human trafficking. When you look at a porn site, right, you don't have to pay to go to the porn site. I mean, some you do, but some, it's like Google, right? How does Google make its money? Advertisements, right? So you don't pay to use Google. You go, you search, and because they have so much traffic, they generate revenue. Okay, so it's the same thing with these porn sites. The porn sites are modeled off Google, a search engine. You go to a porn site, they generate traffic off of revenue from ads. Well, what do you think these ads are? The ads are saying, meet sexy singles near you. Guys are clicking that ad, and where do you think it's sending them? Places where they can buy sex. Okay, what are those places? Brothels. Who is inside brothels? Women that are in prostitution. Who are trafficking victims? Women who are in prostitution. It's feeding this cycle. The reason why we have over 300 brothels in Houston is because not only are people engaging with pornography, but it's creating an economic framework for this industry to keep going, and it's billions and billions and billions of dollars. And not only is it trapping people who don't know the Lord, it's also trapping people who identify as Christian, and the people in the church are being trafficked and you don't even know it. Now let me explain that, because when we go do outreach and I come up to a girl in a brothel, or even when girls come into our program and we tell them you've been trafficked, they're going to say, no way. Me? No. And we're like, well, did you have a pimp? They're like, yeah, but he was my boyfriend. Well, when you worked for him, did you give him all your money that you made? They're like, well, yeah, but he, provided protection and he provided me bags and cars and all these things. And so we're like, okay, and then when you didn't make enough money, did he beat you? Well, yeah. But, he just got mad. He has an anger problem. You see, they reason themselves out of even understanding the manipulation and the coercion. And so when I ask them, are you a trafficking victim? They're going to say, no way. I just made a poor decision. I ended up with the wrong guy. It's not until later that we get into our curriculum that we educate what trafficking is, that they understand what has happened to them. They're like, oh, wow, I've been manipulated so much so to the point that I don't even understand I was manipulated. And that's what's happening to people who struggle with a porn addiction, because you're being trafficked. How are you being trafficked? because there's someone that is profiting off your click and off your view, and you're being exploited. You're being shamed. You're feeling unworthy, but someone else is profiting off of you, and they're engineering the sites to modify your behavior so that every time you go there, you'll begin to stay there for longer and longer and longer periods of time. And that's why they're targeting children, because children are very easy to lure. When I was a middle school pastor, I had kids that would download games on their apps, and these ads would pop up that would lead them to porn sites. And just by seeing that one porn site, it instantly created this hunger to continue to revisit that site. And they had no idea what they were happening. The only thing they knew is what they were experiencing was feeling good. And they just had this insatiable urge to continue to go to visit that site. And that's how addiction starts. We're seeing children young and younger and younger and younger grow into adults and become so addicted to pornography, it's destroying their capacity for connecting with actual human beings. And that is our greatest longing. Our greatest longing is to be connected with God and to be connected with one another. But porn is destroying that. Look, man, pornography, the way that it got started, the sexual revolution in the 60s and 70s, there was a man named Alfred Kinsey. Alfred Kinsey produced kind of the first research on human sexuality. And his whole idea, his research actually, he interviewed pedophiles. He interviewed pedophiles and asked them what the sexual experience was for children when they had sex with children. And based on his findings of interviewing pedophiles, he decided that children desire a sexual experience from birth. So all this research is based on interviewing a pedophile. From there, Alfred Kinsey produces several volumes on human sexuality, and that becomes the foundation for sexual education in the United States. Well, not everyone pays attention to research, but Alfred Kinsey needed someone to distribute his material and make it mainstream. And so he found a guy named Hugh Hefner. How many of you know Hugh Hefner? Hugh Hefner was the founder of Playboy. And what he did was he marketed Kinsey's research and made it palatable for society. And they did this by creating cartoon images of children and publishing them in Playboy magazines. They had a photo of a 10-year-old in Playboy magazine. Where was the outcry? Now, Playboy began to influence an entire generation, because I remember when I was younger and we'd watch MTV, it was like, you know, Hugh Hefner was the cool guy. Like, guys, this is why we need fathers. When I was growing up, the media was telling young boys like me, be like Hugh Hefner, because he's got money, he's got girls. I was being groomed by the media. And it's the same way for your children today. They're being groomed by the media, by the stuff they see on TikTok, by the structure that's created for young girls that say, I can make a lot of money by selling images of myself online.
I found this on the web.
My phone is just going to keep talking to me. And because of Kinsey, because of Playboy, adult pornography becomes normal, okay? When something becomes normal, it becomes accepted. And so because we have adult pornography, now we have a proliferation of child pornography. In 2021, the National Center of Missing and Exploited Children received more than 29.3 million reports of child pornography. 29.3 million, having 84.9 million images. 84.9 million pornographic images of children being sexually abused. And this was up 30% over 2020. So after the pandemic, we saw a 20% increase in child pornography. The other thing that Kinsey produced was something called the Kinsey Scale. And the Kinsey Scale was a way to help determine on kind of what range you were male or female at birth. I mean, like, this is decades ago, but we're seeing all this stuff now, right? We're seeing all this stuff now. And so, church, we need you in this fight. Your kids need you. Those kids in those schools need you. Dads, we need you. My father died when I was 6 years old. And because of that, I always struggled with low self-esteem. And my outlet for that was going to porn. Because when viewing porn, I felt powerful. I felt in control. It blocked me from actually having a relationship with an actual person that I was afraid to have because I had such low self-esteem, low self-worth. But look, the gospel is powerful. I know I'm a little bit over, but Pastor Rob said I can go over, so I do want to show this slide and then some resources. But look, this is the cycle that keeps people in porn. It starts with shame, or it starts with anxiety, or it starts with a bad day, or it starts, maybe you're on your phone, something pops up. You weren't even expecting it. That leads you to seek porn. And this is where the addiction begins. Because you start searching and searching and searching, because as you view porn, it becomes so normalized, you begin to look for different things. You begin to look for more and more violent, more and more deviant types of pornography. I know sex buyers that will drive 5 or 6 hours looking for the right woman to purchase because they've purchased so many different women, they've become addicted to just looking for someone. Then you go into engaging porn. And then you go keep it hidden because porn is shameful. And we don't want to talk about it in church. We don't want to talk about it with our friends, husbands and wives. You know, your marriage is good, but you don't want to bring that to the surface because it's going to issue a wound to the other person. And so you keep it hidden, which leads you back to shame, which leads you back into the same vicious cycle. And the reason why it's so hard to break a porn addiction is because you have to face reality. That's why if you've ever done intervention with someone on drugs or alcohol, it's so hard because they can't see themselves. They can't see the way that it's ruining their marriage, it's ruining their lives. And it's the same way for people with porn addictions. You're covered in shame. You feel dirty. You feel unclean. You feel unworthy. And because of that, the devil begins to feed you lies. And you begin to have what's called vain imaginations. And you begin to imagine, if I tell my pastor, he's never going to let me volunteer. If I tell this group of men, they're just going to laugh at me. If I tell my wife what I'm struggling with, she's never going to forgive me. And we create these false scenarios that aren't reality and they're not rooted in truth. But that's the only way you're going to get out of any addiction that you have, is to have someone walk it with you. And the power of the gospel is the only way that shame is going to be removed from your life. because God has a plan. He has a purpose for you. He doesn't want you to live your life being ashamed, being less than who he's created you to be. We all have struggles. We all have weaknesses. But look, the power of the gospel means that when you accept Jesus and make him Lord of your life, you're no longer guilty of that shame. It's covered in the blood. So now what was once shameful to you, now God sees Christ. I know that's radical, but really that's the only way that's going to break you out of this cycle. That's the only way. The power of the gospel is powerful. And it's meant to take you off a path of destruction, which you are. If you were in a pornography addiction right now, I can tell you, you are on a path to destruction. And that destruction, it could be you, but it can also have other external factors like your wife, your kids, and your community. But church, we need each other. We need to extend grace to one another. We need to understand the power of the gospel to overcome shame. We need to understand about what it means to live in community, to be family, because this is what the world needs. This is what our children need. They need moms and dads who aren't going to just yell at them and get angry at them, judge them, but are going to allow the kids to come, and you're going to be able to listen what they're going through and help them through their addiction without any judgment, without any shame, and help them. Otherwise, we face seeing an entire generation left out and on a path to destruction. And so the gospel is the answer to the porn pandemic. It's that powerful. It's that simple that if I know, okay, if someone comes to me with their porn addiction and I know that I have to help them walk through this and not judge them, how much more are they going to come to me? How much more are they going to go to God? Because that's what they're really longing for. When you go to pornography, you're not longing for porn. You're longing for a friend. You're longing for connection. You're longing for a connection with God. But shame prevents you from seeing that. And so I want to give y'all some resources before I leave. The first one is The Tech Trap by Deborah Berry. This was a mom whose children were, her daughter was targeted by traffickers on the tech and social media platforms. It was so bad that she had to send her daughter to this wilderness program. It's a crazy story, but you need to understand the tech trap and how technology is targeting your children. 55 Things Parents and Grandparents Should Know by Dottie Laster. This one is specifically about trafficking pornography. Dottie is a legend in the anti-trafficking field. She's done so many rescues. She just has so much insight. The Porn Circuit by Covenant Eyes. This is going to help you understand the addictive nature of pornography, what it does to your body, what it does to your brain, how it rewires your brain, and how you can rewire your brain back to being healthy. And then fightthenewdrug.org is another great resource. They have a lot of blogs and really accessible stuff for you. But before we leave, I want to pray for you. And, I did this in the first service, and I was like, raise your hand if you're ready to break free from pornography. And no one was like, dude, my wife's next to me. I'm not ready to. But I'm going to pray a prayer that will provoke you, okay? Because even in your heart, you can make a decision now to say, I'm going to deal with this. Because I can pray for you, but if you don't deal with it, nothing's going to happen. You have to activate your faith. If you believe Jesus can set you free, then you've got to do something. You've got to do an act out of faith. And maybe that's calling up a brother and saying, hey man, I've never told anyone this, but I've been struggling with pornography since I was 14. And you're going to feel like, you're going to feel the greatest feeling in the world because you're free. And you're actually going to know that. And you don't have to pretend to be this Christian. But you can actually believe that Jesus covers over your shame. And you can begin to live like that, unashamed, totally free, completely free. And so why don't we all stand up? And I just want to pray a quick prayer. Just repeat after me. Lord, I'm sorry. And I repent. I ask that you'd remove shame. I want to know what freedom looks like. I want to receive the fullness of what you purchased on the cross. And I divorce myself from idolatry, from perversion. I ask you to use me. Amen. And as you said that prayer, if you're here and you're struggling with addiction, I'm telling you, this week, maybe this afternoon, tell somebody. Tell somebody. Now, like if you're married and you're just not there where you can talk to your wife about it, call a friend and say, hey, I need to talk to you just confidentially, but I need to get something off of my chest. And let me tell you something, you're going to experience a freedom like you've never experienced before. And your voice is going to come back because we need your voice. Moms, dads, we need you. Young ones, we need you. Your friends need you. They're suffering, having suicidal thoughts, anxiety, panic attacks because there's so much shame heaped on them. And now it's our job to go and that freedom that we experience, now we can go and free others. And so thank you for having us with you this morning. If you want to learn more about us, you can just go to elijahrising.org, and we're going to be out in the lobby just answering any questions you might have. But I love you guys, and I believe that y'all are going to be a powerful force for the kingdom. And I believe when you get your voice back, there's going to be some powerful voices coming out of this church. And you are going to be a force to be reckoned with. And your small groups are going to blow up. Your church is going to blow up because you're going to be honest and you're going to be real with people, and that's what people want the most. There's people that are broken, hurting, and all they need to do is just look and see some other broken, hurting people and say, hey man, like I'm right where you at, okay? Let me show you about Jesus. Let me show you how much he's done for me. And he's willing to do the same thing for you. Thank you.